Now let's move on to an update from Turkey, in which the country is holding key presidential and parliamentary elections on Sunday that could either stretch President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's increasingly authoritarian rule into a third decade or set the country on a more democratic course.
Now, the elections are being held amid a sharp economic downturn, rampant inflation, and just months after a catastrophic earthquake.
The highly divisive and populist Erdogan is seeking a third consecutive term as president on May the 14th, following 3 stints as prime minister, which would extend his rule into a third decade. He already is Turkey's longest-serving leader.
The upcoming Turkey's presidential and parliamentary elections could be the most challenging yet for the 69-year-old incumbent Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. The main challenger trying to dislodge Erdogan after 2 decades in office in the presidential race is Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, the leader of the secular center-left Republican People's Party, or CHP. The 74-year-old politician is the joint candidate of a 6-party alliance that has vowed to dismantle an executive presidential system that Erdogan installed and returned to the country to a parliamentary democracy with check and balances. Polls have given Kılıçdaroğlu a slight lead over Erdogan, who has lost some ground amid public outcry over a faltering economy, rising inflation, and cost of living crisis. Erdogan has announced a series of spending measures to bring temporary relief to those hardest hit by inflation, including raising minimum wage and pensions, enacting measures to allow some people to take early retirement, and providing assistance to consumers for electricity and natural gas. His government has also been criticized for its poor response following a deadly earthquake that struck southern Turkey, killing over 50,000 people. His political adversaries say the government was slow to respond and that its failure to enforce building codes is to blame for the high death toll. Adding to national grievance ahead of the polls, anti-refugee sentiment is also on the rise. A shortage of housing and shelters in the quake-hit provinces has increased calls for Syrian refugees to return home. The Kılıçdaroğlu-led opposition alliance and other opposition parties have vowed to repatriate Syrians within 2 years. Under mounting public pressure for the repatriation of Syrians, Erdogan's government has begun constructing thousands of Greek homes in Turkey's controlled areas of northern Syria to encourage voluntary returns. Officials say there are some 5 million migrants and refugees in Turkey, including around 3.7 million Syrians and 3,000 Afghans. But anti-migrant parties say the figure is closer to 13 million. But despite all of this discourse, the economy and high inflation that has eroded families' purchasing power remains the main issue of the election.
Son 20 yıldır tek hükümet, ilk 10 yıl gerçekten başarılıydı. Son 10 yıl gerçekten çok çizginin dışına çıktı. Bunu da biz toplumsal olarak güç zehirlenmesi diyelim. Ama son zamanlarda oluşan ekonomi krizi gerçekten bizi çok derinden etkiledi.
Erdogan's nationalist policies of a confrontational stance against the West and moves that have raised Islam's profile in the country continue to resonate among conservative supporters. They point to an economic boom in the first half of his rule that lifted many people out of poverty, adding that his past successes are proof of his ability to turn things around.
For the first time in the 20 years that Erdogan came to power, he is facing a real electoral challenge, which he may actually lose. So that makes these elections significant. And then, as a matter of fact, in this election, it's not just 2 parties or 2 leaders that are competing, but 2 visions. On the one hand, there is President Erdogan's vision of a security state, a monist society, power consolidated in the hands of the executive. On the other hand, there is the vision represented by Kılıçdaroğlu of a more pluralist Turkey in which no community is othered, one that is getting more democratized.
If there is no clear winner this coming Sunday, the extremely close race is likely to be decided in a runoff between the 2 frontrunners on May the 28th. Voters will also cast votes to fill seats in the 600-member parliament. The opposition will need at least a majority to be able to enact some of the democratic reforms it has promised. More than 64 million people, including 3.2 million expatriated Turkish citizens, are eligible to vote. Also, more than 1.6 million people have already voted in ballots overseas or at airports. Turnout in Turkey, where voting is mandatory, is traditionally high.